Today we're going to be chatting about the new Legendary and Soulbind changes coming to 9.5 for all Fury Warriors. Let's go. Quickly before we start, I want to shout out my Twitch stream where we go live every Sunday, Tuesday and Wednesday from 7:30 to 11 PM UK playing WoW, answering all your Fury Warrior questions. And if you want to further support us, then please do consider giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel and turning on your notifications. Anyway, on with the video. Welcome back, champions. Today we're talking about all the changes come to Fury Warriors in 9.1 as of PTR information as of recording on the 20th of April. Today we're only going to be looking at Night Fate and Venthyr changes, considering they're the kind of the two main covenants that are being played by most players. If you'd like a video on the other two, please do leave a comment down below and we can make sure we can get one made. Initially we're going to go over all of the Soulbinds and Legendaries for both covenants, and then later in the video as well, use the chapters below, we're going to talk about kind of my thoughts on it and what I think the meta is going to kind of look like come 9.1. So first up we're going to look at Night Fate and the Night Fate Legendary of Nature's Fury. This one increases Ancient Aftershocks cooldown by 3 seconds and then further applies a dot to all enemies over 6 seconds, stacking 6 times. Overall this looks really nice. You've got an increase in your Ancient Aftershock by 3 seconds, plus you've got an additional dot on top of your previous dot that you have coming from the floor ground effect anyway. Unfortunately this only triggers when you hit a target with Ancient Aftershock, which will really slow down the overall output of this damage, plus the dot that hits the target from the Legendary only applies and stacks with the ticking of the floor buff ability. These two things together really limit this Legendary from having to keep your mob in a very specific location to this Legendary only triggering whenever you cast Ancient Aftershock. That aside, this is a very powerful Legendary. There could be some really big ramps and really big burst damage coming from this. So in AoE situations and in Mythic Plus, this could do some really big damage. Next, we're going to look at the Soulbind builds for both Corrin and Nia. So the first two abilities that we can choose from are the following: Survivor's Rally and Called Shot. Survivor's Rally just adds a little bit of kind of survivability and increasing your health and self-healing, whereas Called Shot just kind of adds some movability every time you get a crit hit. Both really good choices. I'd personally go for Survivor's Rally because the kind of the self-healing feels beneficial to me over kind of a movement ability. You then end with Bonded Hearts as our new final Soulbind to go for. Bonded Hearts heals up to 5 allies for 2% of their overall health, and will further then redirect Anima's Mastery and maximum health effects are increased by 50% for 5 seconds. So this potential buff on both healers and just your general allies in your group could actually add up to be quite a big thing and quite intense and quite strong. And then next up we've got Corrin for AoE, and potentially this one could mean Corrin is the best for both single target and AoE, but let's look further into it. First off we've got Hunt's Exhilaration. This one enables you when damaging an enemy to gain 3% leech for 5 seconds. Next we've got Vorkai Ambush, which after interrupting or disorientating an enemy they deal 5% less damage for 5 seconds. This debuff could potentially put out a lot of damage. If this does link with Ancient Aftershock and your interrupt, not only are you getting dots and buffs from other things, this additional debuff on your enemy could mean that you could put out a lot of damage during that period of time. And finally it ends with Wild Hunt Stratagem, a very nice final ability. So for Wild Hunt Stratagem, at this time during the start and end of your fights, plus 75 or minus 35, when damage is enhanced by Wild Hunt tactics at the start of your Soulbind tree, you deal additional 5% on these targets for 10 seconds on top of the Wild Hunt tactics buff. In theory this would repeat every 10 seconds for a total of 1 minute. Over this time you'd theoretically get an overall buff of 15% if you add your initial Wild Hunt tactics to this buff as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this could be quite powerful in those scenarios, effectively adding kind of a similar Condemn kind of feel that you got with Venthyr. And that gives us a nice segue into looking at Venthyr. So first off, our Legendary is Sinful Surge, and this is the most overpowered thing I think I've ever seen in my entire life. This Legendary means that with every Condemn hit you have, your Recklessness is increased by 3%. Theoretically, this means during your first part of the fight and your end part of the fight, you could have a potential 100% uptime on Recklessness. This sounds like the most overpowered thing in the entire world. I don't know if it's going to get nerfed. Blizzard, did you realise this? Is this intentional? But like I said, theoretically this means those two windows when you have Condemn up, you can have 100% uptime on your Recklessness if things are timed right and the cooldowns go right, which in theory they will, meaning constant Recklessness is going off all the time and just the buff being there in its entirety, meaning insane amounts of damage. Next with this you have the Nagia Soulbind tree, and for this one you have the choice between Nimble Steps, which means that enemies within 8 yards are slowed by 10%, and when you fall below 35% health, your enemies within 8 yards are rooted for 4 seconds. You also have Sinful Preservation, and this one means that health potions and health stones grant you an absorb shield equal to 50% of the amount healed. Both quite nice abilities, both quite useful. I could see Nimble Steps being useful in Mythic Plus when you're kind of getting low on health or you wanting to slow enemies around you, and Sinful Preservation has that clear kind of benefit in raiding situations. And then you end up with Fatal Flaw as your final choice. This means when the haste effect of Euphoria ends, you gain 10 seconds of either 20% increased crit or 20% increased versatility. This will always be crit for us because our crit will be higher as a Fury Warrior. This then combined with the legendary means that you could have some insane amounts of crit going off all the time during those condemn windows and during the entire fight. Right, so what should you choose and what should you be going for? At the moment it's hard to tell because we can't do things such as the Sims test and so on and so forth. So hopefully we'll get some more data as time goes on, but this is kind of my take on it and like my thoughts on how it might be going. Overall, there's some amazing changes. I'm kind of hoping deep down, I don't know if it's going to be true or not, that they're going to allow us to carry 2 legendaries at the same time. In my head, it would be amazing if we could have Signet the Tormented Kings on, as well as one of our legendaries as well. The reason why I think this could be a potential is because they're doubling down on our covenants and making us stick with our covenant that we've chosen. If they want to do that, then they should enable us to not only just have our classes legendary, but also have our covenants legendary together. This could be completely wrong. There could already be information about this out there. Do leave a comment down below if I have got that wrong. But in an ideal world, we could carry both. Chances are that AoE and Mythic Plus is still going to be dominated by Night Fae, using Signet the Tormented Kings over the actual Covenant Legendary. The Covenant Legendary obviously has its flaws, like I mentioned earlier, such as it only going off when Ancient Aftershock goes off, and such as the dot that it applies only ticking over as the ground floor ticks over as well. In comparison, as you can imagine, Venthyr is going to be insanely powerful if they don't nerf it for single target fights. With that massive amount of recklessness going off basically 100% of the time for your condemn windows, that means over half your percentage of your fight is going to be at 100% recklessness at all times, which means that the damage is going to be mental. I have a feeling it's going to be nerfed, but that will be your go-to kind of covenant, specifically in situations such as raiding. So in short, with some of these changes coming up, you're going to possibly want to stay with Night Fae if you're going to be doing AoE fights and or doing things such as Mythic Plus, and you'll be keeping Signet the Tormented Kings. If there's the chance that you can have 2 legendaries, then it would be amazing to have the Covenant Legendary as well combined with this, just adding that little bit of extra damage. Then for single target fights and things such as raiding, unless it gets nerfed significantly, then Venthyr is going to be the #1 choice, because that 100% recklessness uptime is going to be insane. And obviously all linked in with Soulbinds, there's some lovely things coming through the Soulbinds, so hopefully this all adds up to a nice amalgamation of amazing choices we can all make. Obviously as time goes on and people play the PTR some more and more things get unlocked in the PTR, we can do some more testing, do some more simming. So anything that you find out, anything that I found out, be sure to follow the channel, be sure to subscribe here, because it'll be the first place that you can find out what the exact data is for you to make your choice ahead of 9.1. Be sure to also look at the link in the description below. It will link you to the person who makes all the Fury Warrior guides and kind of their thoughts on legendaries. It's a very good read. It's where I got some of the inspiration for this video from, so please do have a look at that link. Other than that though, like I said, be sure to subscribe to make sure that you can catch all the information for PTR and 9.1 builds as soon as possible. Other than that though, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and join us over on Twitch for our live streams. But other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.